All right, Betsy, I'm so happy to have you on Author Talk with SJC. Please talk to me about why are you here today? Why do you care to be here on this channel?
Yeah, well, I think I really care to be on your channel specifically because you ask the interesting questions. Um, it's cool to talk like superficially about something and be like, okay, this is my character and this is what they do. But I think we've gotten into some discussions in the past about, some pretty deep things about mental health and whatnot, and we're not afraid to go into the deep with that.
Yes, I love that. I had an opportunity to do a class on mental health first aid, and I got a certificate last year, and that was a very interesting course to be a part of, to learn like if you're in a situation, how to judge if it's a mental health situation versus just a, you know,
Yeah.
violent or criminal or, thing like that. And it was really, really interesting to do. But tell me about your space. Tell me about what's behind you and why you're there and all that.
All right, well, this is the beginning of a space. So this is my office that I have in East Meadow, Massachusetts. It's like in my creative arts counseling agency, which is just me for the moment. But hopefully at some point it'll be a little bit more than just me and we'll have some more like community events going. But for right now, it's a individual therapy practice. For the most part, I see individuals and families. And we use creative outlets to talk about and to like use to address mental health concerns or even just like access someone's personal self, right? Like when other stuff seems to be kind of cluttering and in the way, sometimes our creative channels are the things that can help us like really streamline who we are and how we want to express ourselves.
I love that. I actually several years ago went to a counselor and do you consider is it what is your are you licensed? I know there's a lot of different terms.
Yep. No, so I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. So I have my background in social work and how the difference really isn't that big. It's a very gray area when you're trying to like work with people. But social workers tend to look at how environmental factors also affect you. So it's not only one of my favorite things from like going to college and one of my college courses was a cartoon of a person in a hole. And and I love psychologists, so this is not like but it had like the cartoon had, so it's supposed to be funny. Like it was analyzing the person in the hole, right? Like, oh, well, you feel this way, like tell me what about the hole and tell me, and the social worker comes over with a ladder. So like it's more like, okay, how is your environment also affecting you and not just the way you're thinking about it? But sometimes, right, like our environmental factors are things that we're having relationships with or how we're responding to them. Um, that is some of the shift in the focus, but I also do love that psychological stuff of, digging deep. It's just kind of knowing the difference and when to do which one.
Yeah, I love that. Like you need to know the inside, but also how the outside is affecting the inside. That's actually a very good point. That's in my second book, one of the analogies I use is being a sailor and being on a boat, and it's about how the rudder and the sails are you, and you choose how you control them, but you're controlling them based on, okay, the wind, the waves, all the things that are happening from the outside. You have to choose how to maneuver, yourself, and yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about I have this at the remnants of an activity I was doing with kids this week on the
Yeah.
floor where it's just like a bucket of water that is a little elongated and at the end it has the goal and they made their own sailboats and they had to like use the water or they had to use like they some of them were tricky or not tricky but like pretty intuitive and thought of like blowing it and I was like, "Oh good, you gave it some effort because they were told they couldn't like move it themselves with their hands." So I
Okay.
see that effort can get us towards our goals. And then also like they knew too that there was this one little girl I was working with last night and I said, "Do you know what the boat's supposed to represent?" And she's like, "It's me." I was like, "How did you know
Wow.
that before I even brought it up?" But I think she's just so used to like some of the activities that we do that she's put together like this metaphorical way of thinking, which is beautiful.
That is beautiful. That's such a powerful foundation for her to build going forward. I feel like so many of us don't get that kind of imagery until we're young adults, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
trying to see
powerful.
like trying to see the world a little bit through some of that symbolism and that like I, I I think that's what's a little bit unique about me and my way of thinking in general is that like I can put on a lens that like interprets a certain situation and like am I looking at this through the lens of anger? Am I looking at this through a lens of um like kindness? And like what am I seeing and what is it like that different things are representing? I don't know. Like that's part of the poetry, I guess, of life.
Poetry of life. Speaking of poetry, you wrote a whole book
Oh
with
my goodness.
poetry,
This is true.
but it's always hard to turn it the right way on a video.
Yeah,
But yeah, I just want to pull that up. I found this book absolutely fascinating. Tell me a little bit before, we're not going to do spoilers right now, but your practice and where you've come from, how you told me a little bit before when we went out to coffee, just about like the time you spent in schools and the education system and then what happened there and everything. Can you tell me a little more about that for the chat?
sure. Yeah. So I started my like school social work career in like 2004. And I started in Holyoke, Massachusetts. It's a beautiful community, very like just like there's a mix of people and there's just like beautiful threads through that community. And so like Holyoke was represented in the book.
Yeah.
And that's where my character, like that's her home base. And so, just growing through my career, I worked in Holyoke and then I moved to my hometown to work in the schools there just to be home closer to my kids. But I mean, school social work is school social work no matter where you are, because basically you're there for the hardest things that people are going through in the school. So, just keeping in mind, like, we're going to be there, and I say we because I usually had really great teams. We're going to be there for people on their hardest days, because kids still come to school a lot of the time on their hardest days. And sometimes their hardest days could be our hardest days as well, right?
Yeah.
So I would go home. I mean, and just if you care about people and you're having to, like support them through their hard things and guide them through their hard things, it takes a toll. Like there's such a thing as secondary trauma. So I would go home and I would process my traumas from these situations and how I would see them. And again, like that poetic lens of just processing it through like symbolism, processing it through song, through writing, and just had like journals and messes of things. Like back in that time, when I was first beginning my career, I was also in a band. So there were some songs that were derived from it. Um, and it just brought me to a place where I was taking a class for writers and trying to access like what your next project is. And I had never really considered all of these things. They were all like just like little segments of, little flashes of time and places in time. Um, but the person, Jess Keating, who was giving this talk, had said, "You're probably working on something right now, and you've been working on it your whole life. You just don't know it yet. Like you have to go back and see what you've got." So I was like, challenge accepted. I will go
Yeah.
that I have. And like at that time, I had just like really started to, this is around like 2020, everybody's at home. I have all my like messes of journals. I can just pull them out from somewhere, and put them all like on the bed and just like kind of went through them, sifted through them. And I was like, oh, okay, I see what she means. There just seemed to be like these two different voices that I have, like not terribly different, but two different voices that I have when I am processing through things. And one of them is just like a little more edgy. It's like a little bit more my survivor, teenage, angsty side. And then there's this other that's my more developed, like probably more anxious, right? But also just more calm and like knowing that things are going to work out. Like I've had more experiences. I've been able to develop this over time that like I know how this works. Like I've seen things on their hardest days and we can get through this. This is going to be okay. We just have to manage it this way.
That's really that's powerful. I actually was a school teacher for 4 years and uh, had a school counselor tell me one day when I told her a problem a student was having, and she said, I just don't have time for this today. And
Or
it
what?
just broke my heart. 'Cause I'm like, how am I supposed to help
Yeah.
these kids along, you know? And so I'm so grateful for people like you. And um, come to think of it, I interviewed Reese Hogan on this channel recently, and the book that he wrote, I love is My Heart is Human. And I know we've talked about it a little bit. And when you read a book written by someone whose focus in life is on that psychological safety and that growth mindset, it is so powerful and it's just so in depth. Like you said, it's one of those where I ask interesting questions because there's interesting content to talk about. And so I really enjoyed Splinter. But one thing I wanted to tell you too, your practice is Creative Hearts, right?
Mhm.
Do you have a website or anything you want to share that we could link here?
Sure. It's www.creativehearts.us.
Oh, nice. Okay. The .us is important.
I like it because it says us, right? Like .us.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like that. That's really fun. I so I went to counseling back probably around the same time, like 2020-ish. Um, I was like, okay, I need some resets in my brain. You know, I need to go to counseling. And the counselor I went to, I don't know if they were a social worker or I can't remember, but um, he really enjoyed my creative side. And so I would sing during sessions, I would read poetry, you know, things like that. And it was very healing for me. And so that was such a good, just a good outlet, a good motivator for me. Because at that time in my life, I didn't really have like that person in my life who was like, oh, I want to hear your next thing that you've written. I want to, you know. And so then I was inspired and I was writing a little bit, you know, after that. But a couple years later, I had a counselor who she was a little more strict with me. She said, "Okay, I hear you're doing these editing and narrating jobs. When is your book coming out?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, ma'am. Let me." Ooh. But both of them combined was that motivating factor, that last, you know, slap that I needed to be like, okay, I got to get it out there, you know. And so when I published in 2020, it was absolutely a combined effort. You know, it was my content, but it was such an inspiration from the counselors, therapists that I talked to, and it's just amazing the difference that you can make. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you being in the world and wanting to do this and being willing to handle the secondary trauma, you know, and go forward from there.
I appreciate that you didn't just stop at that school counselor that said she didn't have time, but you were opened your heart to other counselors that were and therapists in the future. You know, it's hard because I know the feeling of there's so much, right? Like there's so much in schools and things like that, but never ever. Like, is there not enough time to like say the right thing? You can always approach with kindness, even if you don't have, like if you need to be brief about something. Um, and also, find another time if that time is not the right one.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, let's talk Splinter. So how I want to give you, can I read a little bit of the back?
you can read whatever you want.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So Bruin emancipates herself from foster care at 18. Destiny heads to university on scholarship to study fishery and wildlife. Bruin's dissociations set fire to her plans. Destiny smuggles her into her dorm and her heart. Bruin will do anything she can to keep Destiny safe, even if it means sacrificing the things that matter to her most. And I love the judge, the review from the judge of the self-published ebook awards. This book is exemplary in its voice and writing style, deals sensitively with the issue of mental health without stigmatizing the character. And I love that. And I fully agree. Can you tell me how? I'm curious about the self-published ebook awards. How did you get to into that, I guess?
How did I get? No. I have been always like very careful about what awards to like apply for. with the understanding that like some awards are maybe out there to make money for them, their awards program.
Yeah.
But Writer's Digest has like that history of, just being a resource for writers. And also it was like $100 to enter. I'm always like very like wide open. If you ask me where I got this shirt, I'd be like, oh, I got it at blah 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 for however much. So I need to tell you the deal part of it.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
like
yeah. I appreciate that.
$100 isn't nothing, right? But what it was going to provide, regardless of award, was like information for a review. There was going to be like actual substantial feedback that came back. So I was like, worth it either way, right? So sent it
Yes.
out, and I was like, I believe in this book, and just kind of like let it fly. And it came back a couple months later that they were considering it for the final round. So I needed to submit a couple more like copies of the book, and I was like, oh my goodness, like this is where we're going, okay. And then, found out that it made first place for the young adult category, which was really a huge honor for ebooks, right? Um, Such a huge honor. And then, there was a grand prize. It didn't make it to that for all categories. It did make it to young adult. And it just like re the moment that I opened the email that said that it won the first place, I just cried. And my husband's like, "What's wrong? This is good news." And I'm like, "But it means that outside of like the realm of this circle that we're in, someone else says and verified, like this is going to be in Writer's Digest, like this is a little blip, but it's going to be there, and it says that I'm a writer. It just verified for me that like the door or gate can be open.
That's beautiful. Mm, that's beautiful. Yeah, just soak that in for a moment. So, Splinter, a novel in verse. What drove you to do in verse, or what happened? How'd you get there?
Yeah, so I have been a member of the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators for, kind of piecemeal membership. But I went to a conference, and at that conference they had, oh, I can't remember her first name, but she wrote Emmy in the Key of Code. And it's about a girl, it's a middle grade novel. It's about a girl who is so musically inclined, but she's also computer inclined. And it just makes so much sense that that would be in verse, right? Like even code in verse, like makes
Oh,
sense.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I have to check this out because that sounds like what I love and what I would like to do. So that was already just kind of like in the back of my mind. And then like I said before, like the the challenge of going back and seeing what you already have and seeing that thread. And I just started to take some courses on verse novels to see how can I make this happen. Like there was a good one from like Chris Barron and Rajani LaRocca. Um, Rajani wrote Red, White, and Whole, and it was through this group called oh, what do we call it? um, Inked Writers. Yes. And so
Okay.
it's like through this group that does like a lot of online classes as well, found out like how they did anchor poems. And it was a lot like almost sounds like if you think of a musical, how it has like the song that like shows back up um, but maybe in with different lyrics, maybe at different times emotionally for the
Ooh,
character. Yeah.
I
Um,
want to do that. Yeah. Okay.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we make Splinter the musical. But
Yes.
to have it like revisit and for picking certain styles of poems to just pull out like the emotion of the situation. Sometimes it's going to be free verse because that's just going to move the story along. But are you intentional about the wording and are you intentional about it's a very intentional type of writing. Being
Yeah.
intentional about the rhythm of it. So that like as you're reading, hopefully like there's just like this pull and this pulse that brings you along too. Or there's those times that just like you said, take a moment and just let it.
I am very curious about that. I have been writing obviously for a long time, but recently my cousin mentioned, "Tell me how you got into the industry." And I was like, "The industry?" It's like that word just never connected with what I was doing at home, in my little corner, like we talked about, writing and creating. So recently I've just started thinking about, how am I already in the industry without realizing it? And also, what does it mean to intentionally write something that I want to publish on its own in a certain kind of magazine or, publication? You know, do I reach out to a magazine that focuses on mental health or something like that and write something for, it's just interesting to think about what's the next step other than just trying to publish a book. What else can I do in the meantime? And I love that just openness to what needs to be in the world.
Mm,
And am I the one to write it?
yes. Yes and
I
yes.
I have yes. Just correct. That is the answer. Um, okay, so to be continued.